And that's my big thing. But tomorrow, but we'll wrap up signing, kind of what we expect to happen signing day. But I did want to get to some super chats
Cool.
here, Vince.
While you're looking for those real quick, is everybody that is committed to Notre Dame right now expected to sign tomorrow?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
The only question is Amorian Walker.
Okay.
Now, I'm told that Tom Loy has said that he's fine. I'm told by my Notre Dame sources that they expect him to sign, that he's telling them all the right things, but just the way he's conducting himself, I'm going to believe it when I see it. Right.
Okay.
And so, yeah, there we go. First of all, Jim Halloran, thanks for a great job you do. Happy to be a new IB subscriber. Jim, I actually just entered your information into my computer like a day or so ago. I track everything. You should have got an email from me, but thank you very, very much for joining. We did pass 1,000. That was something we talked about on Saturday night, I believe. We are past 1,000 subscribers on the board. I also want to tell people, if you're having issues signing on to the board today, we did a migration to a new server last night, a bigger server, a more expensive server. But it's because we grew so fast. Awesome. When things were happening,
it was
just slowing the board way down. So we did switch to a new server. Today they're doing a lot of optimization to get it ready for signing day. If you can't log in, just clear your cache and cookies, and then open a new window and try to sign in again. If you have an issue, then email me at brian@irishbreakdown.com. But everyone that's reached out to me with that issue, as when they've done that, it's worked for them. So if you're having an issue, just reach out to me. But appreciate everybody that signed up, the growth that we've had in the last 6 months. We launched this thing in July. I mean, my goal was to have 1,000 by the beginning of the 2022 football season, and we reached it on December 13th and 12th. So it's been a lot of fun. But, Jim, thanks for signing up. Colin Wyman, Brian, I slid in your DMs and told you I'd send this. Much love. Thank you for all you guys do. But most of all, go Irish, baby. Yes, absolutely. I was on a radio show in Tulsa, Oklahoma today, and they were asking me, and I said, it's been a long time since we've seen this much energy in the Notre Dame fan base. It really has. A lot of very excited people. Michael Brahoni says Marcus Freeman said he wants coaches who are relentless recruiters, and that certainly doesn't describe the work Alexander has put forth on the trail. No, I agree. I agree, Michael.
And you have to be able to also relate to the guys that are already in your room and, have a good relationship with those guys. And that has not been the case either, just based on the transfers. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, I'm not speculating. It's 5 guys transferred. So, I mean, that also has to be part of it.
Well, and it's been not closing on other receivers in the past,
sure.
Not prioritizing certain guys, and having to have Tommy Rees and Chip Long come in to get guys to commit.
Right.
It's been, I mean, we had this problem with Deion Colsey last year. The difference is Deion committed earlier, which gave Tommy Rees and the staff plenty of time to get him back into the fold. Remember, Deion Colsey decommitted from Notre Dame. And one of the things that we were told behind the scenes, so staying closer to home and all that, was all these schools are calling him every day, and he doesn't really talk that often to Coach Alexander. Well, Tommy Rees was a big reason to get him back into class, not Del Alexander. And he did a good job with Tobias Merriweather and did an okay job with CJ Williams, but not staying on that, CJ is partly why we're where we are. This has been if this was just about CJ Williams and we're saying all we're saying about Coach Alexander because of CJ Williams, we'd be a couple of a-holes, if I'm being honest, right? And we'd be hypocritical a-holes because why aren't we hammering Mike Mickens for losing Devin Moore, right? Because the difference is Mike Mickens has done a great job, and we understand the circumstances why Devin Moore left. Don't like it, but I don't know if there's anything the staff could have done differently. This has been a systemic problem, a consistent problem with Coach Alexander. That's the difference. And that's why I think when I've never publicly advocated for firing a coach, and I guess I'm kind of doing that without saying firing, but the reality is Notre Dame needs to move on with the offensive line and the receiver coaches. I'm confident that's already happening at offensive line. I think Coach Quinn understands that the bowl game will be his final, thing at Notre Dame.
Right.
I have not been told a similar thing about Coach Alexander, but it needs to be the case. So it's time for It's time for a change and that's also Michael. Marcus Freeman said something in his press conference. It's not about basically what he was saying was it's not about what I say, it's about what I do. He said he needs relentless recruiters on the staff. Now, to me, that can be turned in a lot of different ways. At the end of the day, you can be relentless or whatever. It's about results. Are you getting the results? And are you doing the work necessary to get the best results possible? That can sometimes mean someone who's just a grinder on the recruiting trail, like a Mike Mickens, like a Marcus Freeman, like a Tony Alford, like a Mike Elson, or someone who's just has such a great reputation that he identifies, I want that guy, and then goes and gets them, like Harry Heastand.
Right.
How much work Harry Heastand puts in the recruiting trail and how much work Marcus Freeman does are two completely different things, right? But they both get the same results. That's the key. Now, it doesn't mean you can be lazy as long as the results are. It's not about laziness. It's about this is my style. I go who I want and I get them. But the end result, it's the result. So if you say it's about relentless recruiters, and then you don't make these changes, especially at receiver when it comes from a recruit, like my bigger issue with Jeff Quinn is more the coaching part. He's been a good recruiter, not a great recruiter, but Tommy Rees gets Billy Shrouth, and all of a sudden this is an elite offensive line class. Well, if it wasn't for the work to get to the first four,
right?
Tommy Rees doing the work right. So if we're going to be fair, let's be fair. His is more of a coaching thing, and to a degree recruiting, but more so coaching. The problem with Coach Alexander's both, and that's the issue. But it's time to move on, in my opinion, from both of them, and we'll find out if he does. Because if you don't, what are you telling your staff if you continue to allow that to happen? Because you like them, that's interesting. Can you get this one from Paul Vince?
I certainly can. Paul says, thank you for the super chat, Paul. Very much appreciated. Hey, Bryan and Vince, no question. Just thanks for keeping us informed. Also wanted to keep you in the lifestyle to which you are accustomed, like me, just above the poverty line. Appreciate that, Paul. As a teacher,
that's right.
I understand completely, and I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you, Paul.
Let's see. Let's get down to the next one. Here we go. From Lucas Chapman. Lucas with a big super chat. Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very much, Lucas. Thank you. He says this kind of seems like a double-edged sword at this point. We have wide receiver recruits going elsewhere and currently underdeveloped wide receivers on the roster. Notre Dame hitting the transfer portal could make things worse, break the cycle. And I think that's an important piece that people need to understand, that the transfer portal, while it is evolving and changing, it's still a stopgap. Right. You can't, your plan can't be, well, we don't get so-and-so, we'll just go to the portal. Like that is not a plan. You know what I mean?
It's a lazy way to build a roster.
Yes.
When you're
absolutely.
at Notre Dame. We're going to have a show on this after one of the shows we're going to have here. And I don't know if it'll be before or after the bowl game, is Notre Dame has to treat the portal differently than everybody else. It's not a disadvantage. It's not an advantage. It's just part of the deal. And I think Brian Kelly's BS excuses that people are being told by people around him, because, that's what he's been doing for years. It's now just everybody else is kind of, aware of it now. Vince, we've been talking about this for a while, we can't bring in all these recruits. Well, I'm sorry, that's lazy.
Exactly.
If you're at Notre Dame, if you feel you have to go get a bunch of kids from the transfer portal, that's because you didn't do your freaking job when it came to recruiting players, right? Because the one thing about Notre Dame and the transfer portal is Notre Dame's not going to lose as many kids to the transfer portal that they don't want to lose. Right now, they've lost some kids, right, and mainly at one position. But for the vast majority of the other transfers, they've been guys that Notre Dame staff was like, okay, we support your decision to leave. You know what I mean? And so Notre Dame's going to keep more kids than a lot of other schools, because kids come to Notre Dame usually with the idea of there's more than just
getting
like everyone's like, oh, Drew Pine's not going to get beat out. Is he going to transfer? Drew Pine's not leaving Notre Dame until he has a degree.
Right.
I'm just telling you right now, Drew Pine's not leaving Notre Dame until he has a degree. You're going to have a lot more of that at Notre Dame than you have other places. So you've got to treat the portal differently. And we're going to do a whole show on that. And after signing day, we'll probably do it before the bowl game, because I think it'll be interesting to kind of look at events from here's what this class looks like, here's what the scholarship breakdown is, and here's how Notre Dame needs to handle the portal specifically for this year. But then I also want to talk about how Notre Dame needs to handle the portal big picture. They need to embrace the portal, but they need to embrace it the right way. And just every time something doesn't go your way, jump. And this is what I think Lucas is getting to. If you just run to the portal, then you may create another problem, because, you brought a kid in, but that's going to force another kid out. I don't. I'm telling you this, and it is something I was told. And I'm not hammering it to a big degree because I haven't been able to get enough sourcing back in return on it. But one of the things I was told that started to kind of turn CJ off of Notre Dame was he was told by Coach Alexander that Notre Dame was going to look in the portal for receivers. So if that's true, that's a mistake. The point being, you got to be careful with how a place like Notre Dame uses the portal. And so right now, the focus needs to be on sign the kids you have committed, get the kids on your roster back. If you do that, because you also have Matt Salerno. I mean, if you have 9 Scott, if you get Austin and those 5th-year guys back, and you've got Matt Salerno, you really have 10 receivers, in my opinion.
Is Matt a walk-on technically right now? Okay,
he's still a walk-on.
I wasn't sure if he was.
But he's a kid that's played, and
absolutely, and he gets a lot of reps at practice. I mean, he's on the depth chart.
Right. Now, are we saying, hey, you're going to beat Alabama because of Matt Salerno? No, but we are saying is Matt Salerno can help you. He can be a depth player. That's the point. And then that way, so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. Now, if you lose players from the current roster more, then you have to turn to the portal. But we'll have a nice, long, fun discussion on that here coming up very soon. But Lucas, thanks again for that super chat.
Very much.
I appreciate it. Garth Cassidy says Moore is announcing at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. Yes, he is. Again, I anticipate Florida being the choice. But look, guys, Notre Dame's not going to stop. They haven't stopped, right? But there's only so much they can do on this one. So barring them being able to, they'd have from now until 7:30 tomorrow, they'd have to convince him to do something that right now he's not planning on doing. So we shall see. Paul Olmstead with another one. Just read that Everett decommitted from Clemson. Notre Dame Christmas miracle. He decommitted several days ago. I don't think Notre Dame was ever a serious player for him. I don't believe he visited. That's Dalen Everett from IMG. He's originally from Chesapeake, Virginia. He's a really good corner. Well, I'd love to have him, but I don't believe that's in the mix. Look, here's the thing too: is when kids decommit, usually they decommit because they got somebody else in mind.
Yeah.
Like Devin Moore decommitted with Florida in mind. He didn't decommit a week and a half before signing day, but I'm going to open things back up again.
Yeah, right.
He had an idea in mind.
Yeah.
CJ Williams is decommitting with the notion of he's going to go to USC. That doesn't mean every kid has one school, but a kid says, hey, look, these are the 3 I'm going to look for. Because a lot of times, because those are the schools have been recruiting him this entire time. So like a kid's not committed and talks to no coaches and then just opens things back up and then he's going to figure it out in 3 days, right? Usually it's because these coaches have been still recruiting him for a long time, which is why you don't ever stop recruiting committed players, whether they're your committed players or somebody else's committed players. But I don't see that one happening. But yeah, I mean, he's a great corner and also he's from Virginia. So, I mean, those two things.
He's good.
Clearly he's good.
Clearly.
We have a lot of new people on our channel, Vince. So I've played high school ball in Virginia, just so people understand. My family still lives in Virginia, so I have a Commonwealth bias. I will not be afraid to admit that. Patrick Barnes, super chat. Thank you, Patrick. Any word on some of the Oklahoma State players sitting at the bowl game, like Kyron and Kyle are doing? I haven't heard anything.
I haven't,
but honestly, I have not been super.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do that after the bowl, after the signing day. We'll dive into it. I mean, we'll get into all that. Having said, they did lose their D coordinator, which to me is every bit. Is
he gone?
He's
or is
gone?
Okay,
he's not coaching in the bowl game.
Okay,
so he's gone.
Yeah. My plan is to start on Oklahoma State after this week, after
Thursday. I'll probably start on
finals
Thursday.
and all that stuff here. So yeah,
I'll start more on Thursday. We're gonna have some really cool breakdown stuff at Irish Breakdown, which I'm looking forward to doing. But yeah, that's a big loss for them. I mean, that's the equivalent of them losing Kyron Williams, maybe then and more, because he influences so many other guys. I mean, that's Jim Knowles is a heck of a defensive coordinator, and that's the reason they won this year. Now, will the defense all of a sudden stink? No, but let's not act like losing him is not going to hurt,
right?
For a game. But players wise, I haven't heard anything at this point in time. But I also haven't been paying super close attention. Did you hear Mike Gundy explain, say in the press conference, like how his conversation went with the players when Jim Knowles left?
No, I didn't.
It was so good. I really like Mike Gundy. I know some people don't. It's like you either love him or you hate him. I like him a lot. I think he's fun. But he basically said, he goes, look, I told the players, he goes, I love Jim. He was explaining, Jim's a really, I can't remember what he said a term that kind of maybe sounded like it was negative, but he was making the point like, kids just love him. Like he said, he'll cuss at them, and they'll laugh. And he wasn't making fun of him. He's just like, they just love, it's like, no matter what the guy says, they love him, right? He's a lot like Harry Heastan, right? And he talks about, he just has a way of, he just like, he's saying his praises, right? And he goes, and, people talk about opening up a checkbook. He goes, somebody asked me that question. He goes, well, hey, will you open up your checkbook and write a blank check to your wife? He goes, no, and he's like, well, okay, there you go. You can't give people blank checks, right? I mean, we have budgets. He goes, so we're talking to players, and I asked so-and-so, I said, hey, so-and-so, if we're paying you $800,000 and Tyler, community college offers you $2.4 million, where are you going to play? He goes, all right, let's get ready for practice. he's like, look, you just be honest with him, right? Just be, and I love that.
Kids respect that though.
I just love that whole thing. It's just like, why is coach leaving? Because they offered him a ton of money, not load of money that when we couldn't afford to pay him that. You know what I mean? Like, just there you go. Let's go. Practice. What it is. I thought that was really good. That guy makes me laugh. I like Coach Gundy. I do. Patrick Quinlan with Super Chat. Thank you, Patrick. Did I miss you guys talk about Tommy Rees's interview with Ryan Russillo? Great listen. Tommy was very candid. You did not miss that.
I did not hear it.
Vince, it's on the message board. You got to go listen to it. It was awesome.
It was all over the message board this morning too.
No, it's from a couple days ago.
Oh, okay.
But basically he said, you got to listen to it. There's, what we should do? You know what? Let's make that. I'll have to get with Vince on the schedule. I would actually like to have that be the focus of a show coming up. I'm going to write that down because there was so much to unpack from that. Like he talked about what happened with Kelly. Like he was with Kelly when that whole thing happened. He explained how it went down. He talked about how close he was to taking the LSU job.
Wow.
He talked about he feels like he now has autonomy of the offense. He didn't always have that, which confirms what you and I have been saying for 2 years.
Right.
There was, and why he's staying to work with Marcus and how Marcus helped, it was just really a great interview. Really, really great interview. So that's something that I thought I would like to discuss. So yeah, Patrick, that's a really good thing. Let's actually, Vince, I wrote that down. Let's make that a topic here soon. So like tomorrow we'll do recruiting stuff, obviously. Let's do Thursday. I was actually going to start kind of kick off Okie State coverage. Let's push that back. Let's talk about Tommy Rees and some other.
I think that's a great idea.
Some other things that are kind of going on.
Maybe fresh with Oklahoma State next week.
Yeah. Or maybe this weekend, depending on what our schedules are like. So yeah, that's a great one, Patrick. I like that. That. And then maybe we can do Tommy Rees and then have a transfer portal conversation on Thursday, maybe something like that. Well, Vince and I will figure it out, but we're gonna devote at least, if not a whole show, at least a good chunk of a show to that because we got to have Vince listen to it because it was really
I'm
good.
looking forward to it. I didn't realize
he was as candid as you will hear a coach be. I loved it.
Refreshing,
I loved it.
Because I'm talking about Freeman being refreshing and candid.
Right.
Same thing with Tommy. I think he kind of had a muzzle on him, and I don't mind it. And people are saying, well, they might be too candid, they might be too honest. I don't think that exists. I'm sorry.
Well, it is if you're saying like Well,
here's the conversation I had with
this guy's
so-and-so.
a bad coach, or I think that guy. I don't like working with that guy, or no, you don't do any of that. But
it's also okay to be human.
He made a joke, so there, like fans not booing him as a player. And he goes, I think that had more to do with the turnovers. And I thought he was going to make a joke, but he was being serious. Like he was like, he was like criticizing himself. Like this is why they didn't like it because I basically turned the ball over too much, right? And then he made a comment. He's like, I don't want me at quarterback either. And it's just like and he was kind of being self-deprecating, but he also kind of like, look, we need a dynamic quarterback. We need a big time. It was great. I loved it. And number one, we got a chance. I mean, when was the last time we heard a Notre Dame assistant coach even have that opportunity?
Exactly.
And that's what I loved. So I was a big fan of it. But yeah, we'll do a whole show on it, Vince. You gotta listen.
I'll listen to it today.
Yeah. You got that one?
Yep. Zach Martin, thanks for the super chat. Zach, he says, if you are the new O-line coach, whenever it happens, who are your primary targets for the 23 O-line class? That's geared towards you for sure.
Mm-hmm. There's guys on the board. Caden Proctor's obviously on the board. Caden Green, Samson Okunlola, I think is how you say his name. He's from Massachusetts. TJ Shanahan, Harris Sewell. There's a kid I really like from New Jersey, Chase Pasantis. Really like him. Those are guys that are all going to be priorities. But honestly, I can't really know that until we know who the O-line coach is. If he's a guy from the NFL, they'll probably just kind of start with the board they have and then build out. If there's a coach from another school, he may start out with kids that he evaluated there first. It just depends on who the coach is, but those are some names that I look at. But I think the big thing is they don't have to hurry into this class because they've signed 10 kids in the last 2 years. And they're 10 good kids. There's only one guy that I don't view as potentially a starting caliber player. That's Pat Coogan. And, I've talked to a couple people who said, he's surprised some people. He's, a little better than people thought. Tough kid, that kind of thing. So you like the 10 kids you signed the last 2 years. So you don't have to hurry up and finish your class. You can shoot for big fish. And I think ultimately that's what they need to be shooting for. But I'm definitely recruiting tackles in this class. That is the one thing.
That's a good
guys
point.
that have to be able to play because tackles can always move inside. Harry Heastand, when he won the Joe Moore Award in 2017, his unit won the Joe Moore Award in 2017. He literally had 5 guys that played tackle in high school. Now, the only guy that wasn't recruited to play tackle was Sam Mustipher because he was a left tackle in high school, but he was recruited to move inside. All those other kids were recruited to play tackle. And you find the best 5 because tackles tend to usually be a little bit more mobile and athletic and all that. So that's going to be the big
strategy.
I love that strategy.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. I heard somebody on a message was like, so-and-so said on another site that, that they're shifting to this strategy. I'm like, shifting to that strategy. That's what Harry Heastand did for however many years he was here. So like if you weren't sticking with that strategy, no, what I'm saying is like, that's not necessarily what Jeff Quinn's strategy was for a while.
I see what you're saying.
It's like, well, it should have been because he watched how good it was, in the years before. Paul Moore, thank you for that.
Thanks, Paul.
That super chat. Yes. And this is a comment I want to respond to. Real Sports Talk with Alex. Losing CJ has nothing to do with Dell in all reality. False. Now, listen, this is what you have to understand, Alex. Kids always are going to have a reason why they leave. It's distance. It's girls. It's academics. It's playing time. I don't like the offense. Here's the deal.
Million things.
CJ committed to Notre Dame a year after they had the 3rd lowest yards output in passing of Brian Kelly's tenure. 2017 was the lowest, and then 2012 was the only other one that was lower. They had this year they were significantly better in yards per game. They were significantly better in yards per attempt. They were significantly better in completion percentage this year than they last year, the offense that he committed to. Okay? So the reality is that you can use whatever excuse you want. This is why coaches have to stay engaged on players because you don't let those things become issues. That's what a lot of people are missing. Say, well, he said it's because of this. It got to that point because you allowed it to get to that point. Because if you really built that relationship with him and stayed on him, then you would have known a month ago that it was really this. And yes, we need to convince him of that, but we need to make sure we protect ourselves because at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do to change this. Right. And then the minute Lincoln Riley got hired and you knew what his issues were, you should have continued to push for him, but you should have also been doing some things over here. Right. And so, no, it is about Dell. And it's not, well, he didn't like Dell, so he left. It's not saying that. From everything I've heard, CJ liked Dell. It's about the job you do as a coach. It's about keep making sure that you're staying on top of recruiting to make sure that you don't get to this point. And if you do get to this point, you expedite that happening sooner so you have time to go make replacements. That's all part of recruiting strategy. So to say this isn't about Dell simply because CJ, like, what's he going to say? Why did you decommit? The receivers coach didn't call me enough, and I didn't really have a great relationship with him, and I don't think he's a good coach. I'm not saying he believes any of those things, but, like, if he did, he's not going to say it. So, trust me, this has a lot to do with Dell Alexander. Right, because it's like we can all keep making excuses for why all these things keep happening at his position way more than any other. But the fact is there's a pattern here. And as we said earlier, if this was just about losing CJ Williams and that was it, then this conversation would have gone way different. This is a pattern. Yes, and an established pattern that we have to be willing to accept and address. And hopefully Coach Freeman will do the same thing.
Right.
I believe he will, but ultimately we won't know until we get there.
Brian, I got to run.
And I think that's it for the super chat. So that is also going to do it for today's show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. check out the Irish Breakdown message board. We're going to continue all these conversations right now on the message board. We will be back tomorrow at 12:30 for actually, I don't quite have our schedule yet. Vince won't be there. It's gonna be a little bit different schedule.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tweet out the plan later tonight. We're probably gonna end up having like a couple different shows where we break down offense, break down defense, kind of here's the latest of what's going on. So make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you're on the message board. I'll put it out on both of those. And then, of course, if you hit the notification bell, you'll see when the shows are scheduled. So for Vince, I'm Bryan. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you all again very, very soon.